The movie takes place in Kyoto, a prefecture in Japan, where a young man on a train is staring at a young woman standing opposite to him, who is reading a book. The young man narrates that it was love at first sight, but isn't too pleased about this, as he's certain he won't see this girl ever again. The young man convinces himself that he'll speak to her if they both get off at the same station, though to his surprise, it ends up coming true. The young man runs to find the girl, and suddenly sees her crossing the platforms. He takes off, chasing after her, and eventually catches up to her. He then, without saying much else, asks the girl for her email address. He doesn't stop there, he also confesses his love to her. The girl smiles and tells him that she doesn't have a cell phone, much to the young man's disappointment, which is written across his face. He understands, and thinks she's not interested. The girl stops him as he's beginning to walk away, telling him that it's true she actually doesn't have a cell phone. The scene cuts to the two of them sitting together on a bench at the station, having a conversation. The young man introduces himself. He is a 20-year-old undergrad named Takatoshi Minamiyama. The girl's name is Emi Fukuju, and she is also 20 years old. Takatoshi is very nervous, rubbing his knees as if he's cold. Takatoshi goes on further, stating that he's a visual art student, and that he's studying political cartoons. Emi also talks about what she does, and she is also a student, though she's learning cosmetology. Takatoshi wonders if there's a cosmetology school nearby, which Emi denies, telling him that she just got off at the wrong station, due to being new to the area. Emi suddenly stops Takatoshi as he's about to say something. Her face changes, she looks more serious, and she asks Takatoshi why he chose her. Takatoshi doesn't know what to say. He tells her it felt more like an instinct, that for some reason he just knew that she was the one. Just then, a train approaches the station, and Emi needs to catch it, as she gets up and starts to walk away. Takatoshi quickly asks her if he'll ever see her again, and Emi, now in tears, promises they will. Takatoshi, confused as to why Emi is crying, asks her, to which she replies that something sad recently happened. Takatoshi smiles and waves, promising to wait to see her again, and Emi replies that he'll wait until tomorrow, as she waves and gets onto the train. Later, Takatoshi arrives at the university, where he's being teased by his friend, Yuyama, about picking up girls. Takatoshi denies that he was picking up girls, though Yuyama doesn't let up and goes on to further state that he believed that Takatoshi was only interested in art, and not girls. Yuyama asks Takatoshi if he got her number, which Takatoshi denies. Takatoshi is worried that he won't ever see Emi again, though Yuyama is confident that he will. The next day, Takatoshi takes the train again, at the same time, hoping to see Emi, but she isn't there. Takatoshi recalls Emi's words to him before she left, that they'll meet tomorrow, but he's not sure that he'll ever see her again. Takatoshi is at the zoo, drawing a giraffe in captivity while sitting on a bench. Just then, a voice says that his drawing is really good. Takatoshi is startled. He turns around quickly to see that it's Emi standing behind him, looking at his drawing. Takatoshi is shocked, though Emi seems a lot more confident around him today than she was yesterday. Emi asks him what he wanted to see yesterday, in relation to a place called Takaragake, before she abruptly had to leave. Takatoshi is again visibly nervous, but tells her that Takaragake is one of his favorite places. Emi swiftly asks him if he wants to go there with her right now, much to Takatoshi's surprise. Takatoshi and Emi arrive at Takaragake, a woodland area overlooking a body of water. Takatoshi tells Emi that this place holds a special place in his heart, even though when he was 5 years old, he almost drowned in the water. He was saved by a woman who was passing by. Emi replies that coincidentally, she also had a terrifying experience when she was 5. Takatoshi then asks for her number, which she writes down for him. As she does, Takatoshi catches sight of a notebook in her bag, which piques his interest. Later, Takatoshi is sat with Yuyama and tells him that Emi gave him her number, though now is unsure of how to proceed. Yuyama is disappointed in his friend, urging him to call her and ask her if she wants to go on a date with him. Takatoshi thinks it's a bad idea, though Yuyama is able to convince him. Takatoshi calls Emi, who picks up quickly, while Yuyama is guiding him through the phone call using written prompts on a notebook. Takatoshi thanks Emi for going to Takaragake earlier on, and asks her if she would like to see a movie with him tomorrow, on Yuyama's direction. Emi accepts, and they both agree to meet tomorrow afternoon. Takatoshi and Yuyama celebrate, as Takatoshi thanks his friend for helping him secure his first date. The next day, Takatoshi runs out of the university, but suddenly he's stopped by a friend. The friend tells him that his assignment is on display in the department, much to Takatoshi's surprise. Takatoshi goes to look at the display, and sees that his drawing of the giraffe at the zoo yesterday was chosen by the university. Eventually, Takatoshi arrives at the spot he and Emi agreed to meet. Takatoshi is early, as Yuyama advised him to be, so he does some sightseeing in Kyoto before she arrives. He notes to himself that he may be in love with Emi, as he wishes to share everything with her. Emi soon arrives, and Takatoshi just enjoys watching her enjoy things he himself enjoys. The two of them eat pizza, fried chicken, go to the cinema and then to a restaurant. Emi laughs at Takatoshi's jokes, and Takatoshi can't help but smile to himself, as if it's the happiest he's ever been. Takatoshi and Emi are walking through a park together, very much still busy. They both pause and stare at a lit-up sculpture, and Takatoshi tells Emi that he's surprised that he's even there with her. Emi responds by thanking him, and that today was her first ever date, much to Takatoshi's surprise, as he finds it hard to believe that someone wasn't asked out frequently by boys. Takatoshi then nervously asks Emi if she would be his girlfriend, though Emi replies to this by telling him all the ways she can be difficult. Takatoshi pays no mind to it, convincing her that he'll be okay with it all. Emi then concedes, bows her head, and tells Takatoshi she looks forward to being his girlfriend. Emi then begins to cry, jokingly saying that Takatoshi will have to put up with her being emotional frequently. The scene cuts to Yuyama helping Takatoshi move into his new apartment, and Emi comes around to help. Emi meets Yuyama for the first time, who is delighted to meet her, and tells Takatoshi that she is a good catch, and to make sure he doesn't mess things up with her. Yuyama jokes with Emi that he was helping Takatoshi ask her out, the first time she agreed to go on a date with him, though Takatoshi is quick to shut him up and change the subject. Yuyama eventually leaves, but not before making one last joke to Emi that she should be vigilant around Takatoshi. Takatoshi asks Emi if they're now at a stage in their relationship where they should be referring to each other with less formal names, ones that would signify their closeness. Emi enthusiastically agrees, and Takatoshi calls her by her first name for the first time, with a less formal honorific. Emi does the same, though begins to cry, and quickly wipes away the tears when Takatoshi asks if there's something wrong. Emi then comes across a metal box while unpacking Takatoshi's stuff, and she asks him about it. Takatoshi tells her that he met the woman who saved him from drowning when he was younger, not too long after the incident. The woman gave him the box and told him to keep it safe until their next meeting. Emi notes that it's mysterious, while unpacking the rest of Takatoshi's stuff. Just then, she comes across some manga that Takatoshi drew when he was younger. Emi is impressed at his creativity, but they soon get back to work. After they're finished, it's almost midnight, and Takatoshi makes sure to take Emi home. Emi mentions that her curfew is at midnight. Takatoshi, nervously, asks Emi if they can hold hands, which she is more than happy to do, though she once again begins crying. Takatoshi tells her for the first time that she cries easily. Takatoshi now has a look of concern on his face. His new girlfriend cries way too easily, and especially when he suggests they take a step in their relationship. Takatoshi drops off Emi at the station and waves goodbye, and she says the words, "Until tomorrow." Takatoshi narrates that those words, "until tomorrow," sort of became their secret password. Some time passes, and the couple go on multiple dates and become closer. Emi even begins cooking for Takatoshi, who very much enjoys her cooking. One night, Emi makes beef stew for Takatoshi, who is absolutely amazed by how well it's made. Takatoshi even goes as far as to say that it tastes as good as his mother's stew, and asks Emi how she made it. Emi tells him that she adds chocolate as the secret ingredient, which Takatoshi is surprised by, as his mother's stew has the exact same secret ingredient. Takatoshi asks Emi how she knew to put chocolate in the stew, and she insists that it's just a coincidence. Though Takatoshi notes that this isn't the first time Emi has told him something that she shouldn't know. Takatoshi states that when Emi saw his giraffe drawing at the zoo, she said that it should be displayed at his university, which ended up happening. He claims it's like she can see the future, to which Emi asks if he would treat her differently if she did possess this superpower. Takatoshi is stunned that Emi is even entertaining such a ridiculous notion, though she does laugh it off, stating that if she had such a superpower, she would be rich from gambling. During the day, Emi is giving Takatoshi a haircut, and Takatoshi, without realizing, calls her by her given name, and with no honorific. Takatoshi quickly asks her if that's okay, to which she responds it is. Takatoshi expresses his desire that Emi do the same, to which she agrees, though she ends sobbing again. One night, Emi is at Takatoshi's apartment, where they watch a movie together. After the movie, Takatoshi says he wants to hold Emi, which she allows him to do. The two of them become more intimate and even sleep together, though Emi is left staring at the ceiling, with tears streaming down her face. Takatoshi awakens to find her hiding under the covers, and quickly realizes that Emi needs to make it back home, so she doesn't miss her curfew. Takatoshi walks Emi to the station, who turns him around, and they kiss. The words, "My tomorrow, your yesterday," appear on screen. Takatoshi is back at his apartment, and sees that Emi had forgotten her notebook, the one he saw her put away in her bag when they visited Takarekake. Takatoshi hesitantly opens the notebook and reads the opening page, which has the heading, "My first day, Takatoshi's last," with March 16th written next to it. Takatoshi glances at his alarm clock and sees that the date is March 3rd. He reads further and sees that Emi has written that she models for Takatoshi that day, likely for a portrait, though this has never happened. Takatoshi, confused about how Emi could write something that is going to happen in the future, continues to pore over the words. On the next page, Emi has written, "My second day, Takatoshi's 29th, that she meets his parents. Also, according to Takatoshi's knowledge, this also hasn't happened yet. Takatoshi reads page after page, and all of them are formatted in a similar way. Emi writes her day, then writes the day for Takatoshi, as if they're different days, but the same event occurs for both. Just then, Takatoshi's phone rings, and he sees that it's a public phone number. He answers the phone to hear that it's Emi, who asks him if he's seen her notebook, to which he says he has. Emi confesses that she hasn't been honest with him, and they should meet at 6 the next morning in his classroom, and she'll tell him everything. She also tells him to bring the box in his possession, which was given to him by the lady who saved him. The next day, Takatoshi meets Emi in his art classroom at the university at 6, and they are the only two people there. Emi is sat down, the sun shining behind her, almost making it her hard to see. Emi finally tells him the truth. She says that she's from a parallel world in which time travels backwards. Takatoshi is speechless. Emi hardly wasted time. She just told him an unbelievable truth. Emi suggests they now open the box together. She takes a key from her pocket and opens the box. Takatoshi is stunned to see what is inside. A picture of him and Emi with his parents. Takatoshi claims it's impossible. The woman gave him the box all those years ago, but he just met Emi a few weeks ago. Emi shockingly reveals that she is that same woman, then in her 30s, that not only saved his life when he almost drowned at Takaragake as a child, but also handed him this box some time later. Takatoshi and Emi move to another classroom as Emi further explains that the two of them can only meet once every 5 years, and for only 30 days, in accordance with the moon cycle. Emi has written their ages on a blackboard, of how old they'll each be when they will meet during their lifetimes. When Takatoshi was first saved at Takaragake by Emi, he was 5, and she was 35. When they met again, when she gave Takatoshi the box, he was 10, and she was 30. When he was 15, he was 25, and now they're both 20. Meaning this will be the only time that they will meet when they're both the same age. They both go to Takaragake, standing at the exact place where Emi saved Takatoshi. Emi says she was 35 and he was 5 back then, 15 years in the future for her, yet 15 years in the past for him. Emi then reminds him that she told him earlier that she almost also lost her life when she was 5, and that it was actually the 35-year-old version of himself that saved her. Takatoshi, now quiet, looking down, moves back as Emi tries to touch him. He then says to her that his yesterday is her tomorrow. Later, Takatoshi and Emi are at a cafe, where they talk more about their odd situation. Takatoshi realizes that Emi was only able to write all the events she wrote about in her notebook because she had met the older version of Takatoshi, his 25-year-old self, who told her everything. Just then, Takatoshi sees the same dog they saw earlier, and Emi shouts out that it's a Pomeranian. Takatoshi remembers that the last time they saw the dog, Emi's reaction was not only different, but that he was the one that stated it was a Pomeranian. The scene cuts to the couple at an amusement park. Emi is laughing and having fun, while Takatoshi looks down, watching Emi as she enjoys herself. A clock ticks in the background, while Takatoshi is in a daze, unable to crack a smile. Takatoshi asks himself if everything he has experienced with Emi is a lie, whether she was just going by a set of instructions she had pre-written in her notebook. The next day, which is day 20 in Emi's notebook, the couple visit the garden museum. At this point, Takatoshi seems uninterested, although Emi is still very much happy to spend time with him. Emi asks him to sit on a bench with her and enjoy the view of the garden, but Takatoshi politely refuses. Later, as they're walking out of the garden museum, Emi suggests they go find a place to eat, though Takatoshi is just staring at her, not responding. Just then, Takatoshi asks Emi to wait. He asks her if they could just not follow her notebook, besides doing the bare minimum from it, such as saving each other's lives. Emi is offended by this, asking him why he would even suggest a thing. Takatoshi begins to cry, telling her that it's now painful being with her, that she doesn't feel like his Emi, as she has no recollection of the memories he has besides what's already written in her notebook. Takatoshi apologizes, tells her he can't do this anymore, and walks off, leaving her alone. That night, Takatoshi is at the laundrette, staring at the floor. Just then, Yuyama walks in and asks him if he's had a fight with Emi. Takatoshi opens up to his friend and explains that to him. It feels like he and Emi are just passing by each other. Yuyama looks out the window and says that the moon and the earth are also passing by each other, and it would be very difficult for them to date. Takatoshi states that the moon is moving away from the earth at a rate of 4 centimeters per year, to which Yuyama says it's best to enjoy it while it's still there. Takatoshi, still depressed and now with tears in his eyes, recalls how emotional Emi got at the smallest things. He realizes that he found Emi easily crying when they were happy together odd, but now realizes that while they were first experiences for him, they were last experiences for Emi. Takatoshi realizes the pain Emi is in, and he realizes that he may have also hurt her. Takatoshi bolts out of the laundrette and runs as fast as possible to his apartment, saying to himself that as each day passes, the two of them grow further apart. Takatoshi grabs his phone and calls Emi, who answers and apologizes. He realizes this Emi isn't the Emi he said those harsh words to, but nonetheless, he apologizes and tells her that he loves her. Emi, sobbing over the phone, tells him she loves him too. Takatoshi, now holding back tears, asks if he can meet yesterday's Emi tomorrow, to which she agrees. Takatoshi arrives at the train station just as Emi is getting off the train. They embrace as Emi has tears streaming down her face, and Takatoshi apologizes. He is aware that the Emi in front of him right now has no idea what he said, but he is now more aware of what Emi had to go through. Takatoshi apologizes for being selfish, that even though he was hurt, Emi is suffering a lot more, as she has to experience her relationship with him in reverse. For her, the two of them start as a couple and slowly become more and more distant over time, until one day, for her, they're two complete strangers. Takatoshi and Emi both cry as he apologizes again, holding each other on the station platform. They both go back to Takatoshi's apartment, where Emi talks and Takatoshi listens. Emi says that she first ended up in this world, where time travels differently from hers, when she was 5, and was saved by a 35-year-old Takatoshi from an explosion. Emi states that she knew straight away that this man was the one for her. Takatoshi hugs Emi as they both sit on the floor of his apartment. Over the next few days, Emi and Takatoshi enjoy their remaining time together to the fullest. They go to cafes, parks, and try new experiences, and Takatoshi even introduces her to the rest of his friends at Yuyama's barbecue party. Takatoshi is aware that his time left with Emi is limited, as when the clock hits midnight every night, he can't help but feel down. However, he knows what his objective is. He will enjoy these last few days with Emi to the fullest. The scene cuts to an entry in Emi's notebook, which states that this is her 29th day, and that today she meets his parents. Emi is reluctant to get on the bus, and Takatoshi asks her if there's anything wrong, which Emi denies. The couple soon arrive at Takatoshi's old neighborhood, the place where he grew up. Takatoshi shows Emi all the places that were important to him whilst growing up, including the route he took back from soccer practice, a local shrine, and a takoyaki stand where he orders 30 takoyaki. Emi and Takatoshi sit down and eat takoyaki together, and just then, Takatoshi remembers that he's done this before with Emi. He remembers that when she gave his 10-year-old self the box, they also had takoyaki at this exact spot. He remembers past conversations they had about his life, and how she noted all the little details he told her. Takatoshi and Emi eventually arrive at his parents' home, where his dad is fixing a bike. Takatoshi reluctantly calls out to his father, who doesn't notice his son come in. Takatoshi's father doesn't look too happy to see his son, and hardly has a reaction when he introduces Emi to him, just bowing in response to Emi's bow. Just then, Takatoshi's mother runs in and greets her son. His mother, unlike his father, is ecstatic that her son has found a girlfriend. Takatoshi's mother asks his father if he has anything to say to his son, and he then asks Takatoshi if he has enough money, to which Takatoshi says he has a part-time job. Clearly, there's some friction between father and son. Later at dinner, Takatoshi's mother has made beef stew, which she tells Emi is Takatoshi's favorite. Takatoshi's mother also reveals her secret ingredient to Emi, which is chocolate, and Emi says she will try making it. Takatoshi immediately looks at Emi, realizing that Emi did make beef stew for him, with chocolate as an ingredient, though she clearly doesn't remember this. Takatoshi's mother then asks Emi what she likes best about her son, and her response is that he is kind. Takatoshi's mother agrees, though says that he is also clumsy, so clumsy in fact that he almost drowned in takoyaki, if not for a woman who saved him. Of course, Emi knows all about that situation, as she was the woman who saved him. Emi changes the subject and tells Takatoshi that she didn't realize how much he looks like his father, to which his mother laughs and agrees with her. Takatoshi's father gets up and informs them he's going out for a smoke. Picking up on his father's passive aggressiveness, Takatoshi stays silent and keeps eating, while his mother tells him to not worry, and that in actuality, his father's a big softie, who constantly asks her when Takatoshi will be coming home. After the meal, Emi sets up her camera and the four of them take a picture together, the same picture inside the box that the older Emi will give to the 10-year-old Takatoshi. Later that night, Takatoshi and Emi take their leave, and while on the bus, Emi states that Takatoshi's family is nice. Takatoshi doesn't respond. Instead, he asks her why it is that she can't be his family too. Emi apologizes. Takatoshi suddenly breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably as Emi comforts him. The scene cuts to an entry in Emi's notebook again. This time the entry states that this is the last day they spend together. The last day is finally here, and Emi also wrote that she models for him in his classroom. Takatoshi is sitting in an empty classroom at the university, waiting for Emi, who eventually walks in. At this point, Emi has no memories of Takatoshi, only what she knows of him in her notebook. Takatoshi asks her to sit and tells her that 30 days from now, which is 30 days ago for him, she will meet a very uncool-looking version of him. He tells her that she changed him, and that his hair was messy before she cut it for him. Takatoshi also states that he wanted to draw her from the moment he first met her. Though before he can start, Emmy asks him if he could tell her what they went through together in more detail, as the notebook she has is only filled with details his 25-year-old self told her, and that the current version of him could fill in the blanks. Takatoshi begins telling her all they experienced together as he begins drawing her, and we are shown flashbacks of everything, from when they first met till the present. Takatoshi begins crying again, and Emmy stops writing. Takatoshi says that if they keep doing this, it'll be no fun for her, as it'll be like they're following a script. Takatoshi now finally understands that all the joy he was able to feel these past 30 days was because Emmy hung in for them all this time. Emmy disagrees, claiming that she'll enjoy her time with him, whether it's written down or not. Takatoshi apologizes, and notes that their roles have now reversed, and he's now the one who cries easily. Takatoshi and Emmy are sat at the train station together that night, and Emmy asks Takatoshi if she was a good girlfriend. She states that she'll now go back into his past, and that she and Takatoshi are destined to just pass by each other. Takatoshi disagrees, though, believing that they aren't just passing each other, but are connected and always will be. They hold each other's hand as the clock strikes 12, a train rushes past, and then we see Takatoshi sitting on his own, Emmy no longer with him. Their time together, for Takatoshi, has officially come to an end. The scene cuts to a 15-year-old Emmy meeting a 25-year-old Takatoshi. Takatoshi tells her his story, and shows her the portrait he drew of her 20-year-old self. We are then shown the story from Emmy's perspective. She first meets Takatoshi when he draws her in his classroom, and the next day he introduces her as his girlfriend to his parents, and events unfold for her in reverse. Emmy is clearly enjoying her time with Takatoshi, even though he eventually becomes oblivious to how time runs for her. As the days pass, Emmy starts crying over the smallest things, as she knows her time with Takatoshi is slowly coming to an end. We eventually come to the day that Takatoshi first meets Emmy, which is also Emmy's last day with Takatoshi. We learn that Emmy was crying when she got onto the train that day because afterward, Emmy's time with Takatoshi came to an end, and Takatoshi just experienced the relationship in reverse to her time. Emmy arrives on the train in which Takatoshi first saw her. She takes out her notebook and smiles as she sees Takatoshi glancing at her, as he did at the start of the story. Emmy notes to herself that she has arrived, back with him.